Retrostatic Radio invites you to a decidedly informal time, where anyone under the sun is unlikely to drop in at any time to talk things over with Archie. The people we are assured will be here are not very many, so join us to Duffy's Tavern. Duffy's Tavern with the elite meat to eat. Today's special pig's pickled feet. Archie the manager speaking. Duffy ain't here. Oh, hello, Duffy. Tonight's Clifton Fadiman. Yeah, that mental brain from the radio. Is he the guy that says, "What? Madam, what is your problem?" No, Duffy, you're thinking of Mark Antony. This is the guy that asks the questions on Information Please. A very brainy guy. Yeah, maybe you're right. What brains does it take to ask questions? Well, anyways, we're stuck with him. He's coming down to lecture with the Lord Byron's Lady Literary Society. Now, don't worry, Duffy. I'm writing his lecture, so there's no way he can louse us up. The crowd here tonight. Oh, the usual gang of crumbs. Moriarty just came in. Sore at the government for canceling last year's income tax. Well, remember when he filled out his return and chiseled so much that he didn't have to pay nothing? Well, he's figuring he lost money. I'll call you back, Duffy. Hey, Mr. Archie, what happened to the sign? What sign? The watch your hats and coats sign. Oh, it's right there. I just rephrased the words so Clifton Fadiman would feel more at home. Give her a read. Let me see. Maintain scrutiny of thy chapeau and hats. Nice and confusing, ain't it? Yeah, isn't it? It's a quotation from Shakespeare. You ever see any of Shakespeare's plays, Eddie? Yeah, one. As You Like It. Well, I didn't like it. Maybe he was having an off day that day.
Hello, Arch.
Why, Clifton Finnegan. Hello, Finnegan.
Arch, look at this. A poem by Crackpot O'Toole. Right at me. Personal.
Oh, that's nice.
I'll read it to you. Some men is fools and morons, and some is even joiks. But you, dear Clifton, have combined them all. Nature has given you the works. The guy must really like me, huh?
Yeah, he must. You may not know it, Finnegan, but that poem is written in pure cubic centimeter.
Centimeter? You mean he's gonna charge me for it?
No. If he were to charge you, you'd have to pay a nickel a centimeter. Don't forget, that's an original Crackpot.
Say, Archie.
Oh, yes, Miss Duffy.
Have you seen my Dostoevsky?
Your what?
My Dostoevsky.
Animal, Vegetable, and Mineral.
No, it's a book.
Miss Duffy, what would you be doing with a book?
Well, Clifton Fadiman is coming down here, and I don't want to have him catch me not reading.
Well, naturally.
You see, if everybody stopped reading, authors would stop writing. And if authors stopped writing because nobody was reading, Mr. Fadiman, being a critic, couldn't read what authors were writing, and that put an end to his writing about reading, and the poor man would be without a job.
I see.
Or, to put it another way, if authors write and people...
Please. I don't care to go around this carousel again. All over Dostoevsky. Whoever even heard of Dostoevsky?
Oh, you. You probably never even heard of Shakespeare.
Miss Duffy, not only do I know Shakespeare, I know Bacon, the man who plagiarized him.
Who?
Sir Francis Bacon, the man who wrote every word Shakespeare ever wrote.
Archie, do you mean to stand there and say that the greatest writer that ever wrote didn't?
Yes, I do. Shakespeare, the so-called bard of Stratford Avenue, I maintain is strictly a phony.
How can you say that about a man who is too dead to defend himself?
Well, dig him up. I'll tell it right to his face.
Well, wait a minute, Archie. Maybe we're talking about not the same Shakespeare. What was the first name of yours?
William.
Yeah, that's the one, all right.
Of course it is. William Randolph Shakespeare. Besides, Miss Duffy, when you're talking about guys like Shakespeare, you don't need to mention their first name. Everybody knows who you means.
I differ from you.
In what respect?
What about Washington?
If I walked up to some stranger on the street and said Washington, I'm pretty sure the guy would know that I meant George.
Not if he was selling train tickets.
If I was buying a train ticket, I'd have said Washington, D.C.
Then why don't you say Shakespeare, D.C.?
Because I'm not going to Shakespeare, D.C.
Why not?
Because I can't get a room. Look, Miss Duffy, I got Clifton Fadiman coming down here to read my lecture to Mrs. Piddleton, and I don't have time to waste talking Hippocratic writers. Cue the commercial.
Archie, one of these days you won't have me to fall back on. Today's sponsor is the Kickstarter for the Online Comic Database. OCDB is a proposed comic website that combines an IMDb-style database with a simple, user-friendly interface, articles, op-eds, and reviews without relying on annoying tactics to gain clicks, and a community hub to bring all the diverse and wonderful voices of the fans, creators, and commentators to the forefront. Even just $1 helps out this amazing project. More details at the Kickstarter page proper, link in the description, or search Online Comic Database on Kickstarter.com. Now back to the oddity that is Archie.
Hey, Mr. Archie, do you know if Mr. Fadiman drinks coffee? Coffee? Yeah, I suppose so. Why? Well, we're running a little short. Then just add some chicory to what you got. Okay then, but chicory added to chicory is gonna taste a little like, well, I can't say it on the radio, but it'll be the same color at least. Don't worry about it. He'll be reading a book, so I doubt he'll notice.
Archie, my dear boy.
Ah, Mrs. Piddleton, how are ya? You're looking swell.
Archie, don't. You know I look a fright.
Good point. What makes you look such a fright?
I had a most terrible experience. Just terrible. I had to come down here by subway.
Good gracious, the subway! How ghastly!
Oh, there was no alternative. You see, my limousine is hors d'usage.
Oh yeah? What year?
No, Archie. Hors d'usage is a French expression. It means out of action.
Ah, you mean like OPA?
OPA?
Yeah, it's an American expression. It means out of gas. That subway must be simply livid for one to ride in, huh?
Oh, yes. One encounters such a simply bourgeoisie class of society.
Oh, yeah. Simply bourgeoisie. Makes one sorry one went through the trouble of ducking under the turnstile.
Archie, then you have been to the subway.
Only in London. Of course, over there we refer to it as the lift. But, so much for conversation. I'm glad to see ya.
Well, it is a delight to be here again. It is good that so much has stayed the same. Except poor Mr. Duffy. He seemed to have aged considerably.
Mrs. Piddleton, that's the moose head you're looking at.
Oh, Archie, you must remove it immediately.
Why?
By doctor's order. I'm allergic to stuffed animals.
Hello, Duffy's Tavern, where... Oh, why, yes, she's right here. Oh, Mrs. Piddleton, one has a call on the cellular phone.
Hello? Oh, hello, Mrs. Green. Yes, we're waiting for you and Mrs. Allen. Well, Mr. Fadiman isn't here yet. Clifton Fadiman. I'm sorry, dear, I can't help it. There's a moose here, and it's done something to my hay fever. Do something with it. Like what? Well, it already has been shot. Yes, he's speaking tonight on literature. No, not the moose. Clifton Fadiman. Well, we'll wait for you, dear. Goodbye.
Say, Eddie, take Mrs. Piddleton to the kitchen. There she won't smell the moose. Come on, Mrs. Piddleton. Time for you to play the game, What's That Odor? I'm sure your nose is in the air enough to really get a good whiff. Oh, what is it, Miss Duffy?
Isn't that Clifton Fadiman coming on?
Oh, sure. Clifton Fadiman. Well, if it ain't my old pal. Kip, how you doing?
I'm looking for someone named Archie.
Now, just wait a minute. I'm Archie. You had the pleasure of meeting me just a short nonce ago.
I apologize. I'm wearing my wife's glasses.
Oh, that's different. I can't expect your wife to know me. By the way, Mr. Fadiman, this is Miss Duffy.
Plaza 59970.
I beg your pardon?
You're always asking questions, so I thought I'd give you the answer first.
Miss Duffy, Mr. Fadiman is an intellectual. He don't go out with dames.
Not that intellectual I ain't, Archie. In fact, when it comes to dames, my tastes are positively lowbrow.
Plaza 59970. See you later.
Oh, please, Miss Duffy. Mr. Fadiman came in to give a lecture. Oh, speaking of books.
Who was?
I was. Speaking of books, have you ever read any of the works of the famous poet and forger Crackpot O'Toole?
O'Toole. Why, no. What sort of things does he write?
Typically sonnets and bum checks. That's him over there tilting the pinball machine. Hey, Crackpot, come on over.
Yeah, Archie, what do you want?
Crackpot, meet Clifton Fadiman. Kip, this is Crackpot. You two guys should have a lot in common.
Oh, you're a forger too, Mr. Fadiman?
Crackpot, Fadiman is from Information, please. If you please, forgive Crackpot's ignorant. He's been upstate, otherwise detained,
Oh, you mean in the clink?
In a manner of speaking, yes. It's alright if we talk about this, right, Crackpot?
Oh, sure. It was nothing. A few years for forgery. I made a little mistake when I signed a check. I put 2 T's in Vanderbilt. The whole thing, laughable.
By the way, Kip, someday if you get a chance, I'd like you to get a look at Crackpot's adaptation of Shakespeare.
Crackpot? You wrote Shakespeare?
Yeah, I rewrote 23 of his plays.
Well, how long did it take you?
23 minutes.
23 minutes. I bet you even Shakespeare didn't write them that fast.
Of course. I mean, I got an edge on the guy. I'm ambidextrous.
What's that?
Two-handed dexterous. I can write with both hands.
Mr. Fadiman, don't you think that you could use a guy like Crackpot on your show?
Well, Archie, we already have a poetry expert, John Guerin.
Granted. But, suppose you asked him to quote you something from, say, Lord Byron. Could he do that?
Well, of course he could. He could quote whole stanzas. Could Crackpot do that?
Not only could Crackpot quote whole stanzas, give him a couple minutes, and he could give you the whole poem in Byron's own handwriting.
Archie, forget about it.
No problem, Crackpot. Now suppose... Mr. Archie, our hoity-toity would like to know when the lecture is going to start. Oh, any minute now. Go over and keep her talking. But I've been talking to her. I say Gesundheit, she says thank you. I say Gesundheit, she says thank you. It's pretty monotonous conversation. Well, talk to her anyways. Are you ready for the lecture, Mr. Fadiman?
Ready.
Now just hold on a moment there, Kip. You ain't even looked at the lecture I wrote you.
You wrote me a lecture?
Sure thing. I couldn't have you saying the wrong things and having us get caught by that misinformation dame. Well, Mr. Fadiman, leave us get started, huh?
And you expect me to read it?
Don't worry, there ain't many big words. And what ones there is, I wrote out in capital sight. Here it is.
But I brought my own lecture.
Listen, Kip. Suppose you were in my spot. Would you let every Tom, Dick, and Harry in off the street and let them read their own stuff? How do I know it's clean? How do I know it makes sense?
Well, I was just going to talk about the rudimentary forms of iambic pentameter.
I rest my case. In this business, we gotta protect ourselves.
All right, I'm here, so I guess I'll have to read yours. But there's one thing, though.
Oh, what's that?
If I get fired from Information, please, can I eat here?
That I wouldn't advise. Leave us get going.
Oh, Archie, when is the lecture going to start?
Any second now, Mrs. Piddleton. Oh, Mrs. P., this is Clifton Fadiman.
Oh, Mr. Fadiman, you don't know how happy it makes us girls to have a man like you talk to us.
Mrs. Piddleton, these days it makes any girl happy when a man talks to them. Leave us get on with the lecture. Trumpets, please. Thank you for that. Ladies and gentlemen, I am here to introduce the man who needs no introduction. So, without further ado, I present to you Mr. Clifton Fadiman. The lecture, Kip.
Thank yous, one and all. Ladies of the Lord Byron's Ladies Literary Society. My subject for tonight is contemporary literature. I will be discussing contemporary literature from literature in the medieval ages to books for children. Literature can be divided into 3 parts: fiction, nonfiction, and... Archie, where's the third part? I couldn't think of one. It was driving me nuts. Okay. Literature was started by the cavemen who used to chop out stories with an axe, hence the term hack writer. This, however, was hard on the circulating libraries, as people got tired of carrying home them stone bricks. Besides, many times the stones would fall on the author, crushing him, hence the expression pulp writer. This led to the invention of sheepskin, which up to that point had been used solely for diplomas. Literature has gave birth to more writers than any other profession. Namely, among those is Shakespeare, Bacon, Dickens, and Sir Walter Lipton. Among the French writers are Voltaire, Charlemagne, and Francho Tone. Say, Archie, you left out Mamselle Parmesan, hadn't you? Nah, that's a different kind of literature. Now, among the American writers is also a great assortment of literary authors. Just as music has its 3 B's, Bach, Bach, and Beethoven, American literature has its 3 O's, O'Neill, Odette, and O'Toole. Oh boy. Next comes the Russian writers, among who is Tolstoy, Rimsky-Korsakov, Dostoevsky, and the greatest Russian of them all. Oh, come on, Archie, I simply can't. Just read it. Ivanhoe. Archie. I can't go on with this. My reputation will be ruined. Ladies, the lecture is over. I thank you.
Oh, Mr. Fadiman.
Yes, Mrs. Piddleton.
I've heard you speak many times. I've read every word you've ever written, your books, your reviews in the New Yorker magazine, and there's one thing I want to tell you. In my personal opinion, this is the first time you've ever made sense.
Oh, it's never a dull moment down at Duffy's Tavern. That's the end of tonight's broadcast with a special impression of Clifton Fadiman. Next week, Retro Static Radio returns with a classic suspense tale, Sorry, Wrong Number. If you enjoy the broadcast of Retro Static Radio, please become a patron at patreon.com, which has tiers including upcoming table reads, live hangouts on Discord when applicable, and even voting to see which shows continue on in Season 2. If you want to become a sponsor or a producer for the station, email us at retrostaticradio@gmail.com to discuss our special offers and rates. Sharing is caring, so please follow, share, and subscribe. We're on every major social media outlet like Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. This concludes our broadcast day.